There is a moment narcissists are never prepared for. It's not when you confront them, not when you expose them, not when you finally say everything you've been holding inside. It's when you stop reacting. No anger, no tears, no explanations, no visible hurt, just silence. And to the outside world, it looks like nothing happened. But psychologically, something irreversible has begun. Because when you stop reacting, the narcissist doesn't feel peace. They don't feel relief. They don't feel closure. They feel panic. Not the dramatic kind. The quiet, destabilizing kind. The kind that begins inside the psyche, where control once lived. If you've experienced this shift, when your silence suddenly feels louder than any argument, stay with me. This isn't about strategy. It's about what happens inside them when they lose access to you. Why reaction is the narcissist lifeline. To understand what narcissists feel when you stop reacting, we must first understand what reaction means to them. Reaction is not communication. It is not conflict. It is not even emotion. Reaction is regulation. Narcissistic personalities rely on external emotional responses to stabilize their internal world. They do not self-regulate through reflection. They regulate through impact. Your anger, your confusion, your tears, your explanations, your attempts to be understood. Each reaction reassures them of three things. They still exist in your psyche, they still have influence, they still control the emotional field. This is why arguments with narcissists never feel resolved. Because resolution is not the goal. Activation is. And this is where silence becomes dangerous. Because silence does not provide data. It does not confirm importance. It does not reassure relevance. It creates a psychological vacuum. And narcissists do not tolerate vacuums. To Carl Jung and the fear of inner emptiness. Carl Jung understood something about narcissistic structures long before the word narcissist entered popular psychology. He believed the greatest threat to a fragmented psyche is contact with the inner void. Not loneliness, not rejection, but emptiness without distraction. Jung observed that some personalities construct their identity almost entirely around persona, the mask, the image, the reflected self. When that reflection disappears, the psyche is forced inward. And inward is where the narcissist cannot survive for long. Because what waits there is not a stable self, but a split one. When you stop reacting, you are no longer a mirror. And without a mirror, the narcissist is left alone with unanswered questions they have spent a lifetime avoiding. Who am I when no one responds? Do I exist without impact? Am I real if I am not felt? These questions are not conscious. They register as unease, agitation, restlessness, and dread. 3. The first feeling, confusion. The first thing narcissists feel when you stop reacting is confusion. Not emotional pain, not sadness, confusion. Because silence breaks the script. They expect defense, anger, explanations, tears, collapse. Silence offers none of these. So their mind begins searching for meaning. Are you planning something? Are you pretending? Are you punishing them? Are you trying to provoke? They cannot interpret silence as completion, because completion would mean they no longer matter. And that thought is intolerable. So confusion escalates into something deeper. For the second feeling, loss of control. Control, for a narcissist, is not about dominance. It's about predictability. As long as they can predict your emotional responses, they feel safe. When you stop reacting, predictability collapses. They no longer know what affects you, what hurts you, what reaches you, what connects to you. And this loss triggers anxiety, but not the kind that looks like fear. It looks like sudden kindness, random provocation, uncharacteristic vulnerability, or subtle cruelty. These are not strategies. They are regulation attempts. The narcissist is trying to restore the old emotional circuit. Any reaction will do, positive or negative, because reaction equals connection, and connection equals control. If content like this helps you understand what you live through, gently like the video. 5. Why silence feels like abandonment, even if you're still there. Here is something rarely explained. To a narcissist, emotional non-reactivity feels like abandonment, even if you haven't left. Why? Because narcissistic attachment is not based on mutual presence. It's based on emotional access. When you stop reacting, they feel unseen, unfelt, unreflected. And this triggers an early attachment wound. But instead of grief, it manifests as rage, panic, or manipulation. This is why silence often provokes accusations, guilt-tripping, provoking messages, or sudden crises. They are trying to force emotional re-entry, not because they miss you, but because they are losing psychological regulation. 6. The narcissistic nervous system without supply. When you stop reacting, the narcissist's nervous system destabilizes, not because you hurt them, but because you removed a regulatory input. Your emotions were functioning as feedback, grounding, orientation. Without it, they experience restlessness, irritation, emptiness, an urge to provoke. This is why silence often leads to escalation, not because they are cruel, but because they are dysregulated. And dysregulated systems seek stimulation, any stimulation. 7. The deepest feeling, irrelevance. Eventually, if silence remains consistent, deeper feeling emerges. Irrelevance. Not rejection. Not loss. Irrelevance. And this is the most destabilizing experience for a narcissistic psyche. Because irrelevance means you no longer organize your inner world around them. Their behavior no longer shapes your emotional state. Their presence no longer defines meaning. This is when panic becomes existential. They may rewrite history, minimize the relationship, devalue you, or abruptly detach, not because they are healed, but because staying would require confronting the void. Why narcissists try to re-trigger you? When silence persists, narcissists often attempt emotional reactivation. This can look like sudden affection, apologies without accountability, provocations, or playing the victim. These attempts are not about reconciliation. They are about testing access. One reaction is enough. One explanation. One emotional message. One visible crack. Because reaction confirms relevance, and relevance restores regulation. This is why your silence must be internal, not performative. Silence is not the absence of words. It is the absence of emotional availability. 9. What silence does inside you. Now let's turn inward. Because this transformation is not just about them. When you stop reacting, something reorganizes inside you. Your nervous system slows. Your inner world stabilizes. Your energy returns to center. This is not suppression. This is integration. You are no longer outsourcing your emotional regulation to someone who destabilizes it. And this is why silence feels powerful, not because it punishes, but because it restores coherence. If this resonates, pause here. Breathe. This is the nervous system remembering itself. 10. Jung, individuation, and the end of emotional supply. Jung believed true psychological maturity emerges when the self becomes the organizing center of the psyche. Not the ego, not relationships, not reactions. When you stop reacting, individuation begins to take form. You are no longer defined by who needs you, who provokes you, who destabilizes you. You are defined by inner authority. And inner authority does not argue. It does not convince. It withdraws participation. This is why narcissists feel something collapse when you stop reacting. Not because you became cruel, but because you became whole. 11. The final stage, emotional death without drama. Eventually, if silence remains grounded and consistent, something ends. Not explosively, quietly. The narcissist stops trying. Not because they understand, but because the emotional field no longer responds. This is not victory. It is completion. And completion does not require explanation. Finally, when silence becomes freedom, silence is not punishment. It is withdrawal of misplaced energy. You are not being cold. You are being coherent. And what narcissists feel when you stop reacting is not love, remorse, or clarity. They feel the absence of regulation. And in that absence, they are forced to face something they have avoided their entire lives: themselves. If you made it this far, this wasn't information. It was recognition. And recognition is where freedom begins. If this helped you understand what you live through, consider subscribing to the Mind Kit. More is coming, and it will meet you where words finally stop.